Hello everybody and welcome to our ordinary council meeting 21st of May 2025. In the absence of our Mayor, while she's off having a well-deserved break, I will be sitting in the chair. I remind everybody to please turn your mobile phones off. In case of emergency, please advise the chair and switch them onto silent. Statement of acknowledgement. We acknowledge the Bunurong as the traditional owners and custodians of our lands and waters. Pay respects to elders past, present and emerging. And I'll ask Councillor O'Brien to read the councillor statement.
All members of this council pledge to the Bass Coast Shire community to consider every item listed on this agenda, based on the individual merits of each item, without bias or prejudice, by maintaining an open mind, and disregarding councillors' personal interests so as to avoid any conflict with our public duty. Any councillor having a conflict of interest in an item will make a proper, prior disclosure to the meeting and will not participate in the debate or vote on the issue.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Present and apologies. We have an apology from our Mayor, Councillor Rochelle Holstead, who's, I'm sure, not apologetic because she's right now on having a magnificent holiday away. Declarations of interest, we have none. Confirmation of minutes. Councillor minute held on the 16th of April 2025. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Bauer, Councillor Thompson. All in favour? Carried. Councillor reports. As per normal, the Chair will request councillors to forego their speaking to the monthly reports and they'll be included in the councillor meeting minutes. I will introduce Councillor Thompson, though, to read a veil to a very special community member who passed away.
Thank you. Lewis Graham Potter, known as Lou. Today I reflect upon and acknowledge a man who lived his life well. Lou spent his childhood in Marysville. At the age of 15, he began working on his uncle's farm in Nathalia before the Army beckoned. He served in the Army Armoured Regiment in the Vietnam War. After Vietnam, he entered the police force, where he moved from country to Melbourne. He was a career Victorian policeman and served until his retirement. Lou moved to Woodley in the Bass Valley and completed the full cycle back to Barmy. His first job at hand was to restore a Massey Ferguson tractor, and his friends and family will tell you he had an eccentric approach to farming. There are many stories that family and friends will treasure, and somehow it always worked out. It was at the farm that Lou really found his paradise, renovating the original derelict farmhouse into a home where everyone was welcomed. He fenced the entire property, then planted thousands of native trees. This was his sanctuary where he loved to potter and care for his land and animals. Lou took to his local community with a passion. He was president of the Bass Valley Land Care for many years, president of the Woodley Hall since 2021, and a member of the Malvern RSL, attending Anzac parades with his mates. He spent time with grandkids, family, loved ones, friends, and giving back to his community. Lou has left a piece of himself with every person he has met, whether that be a ridiculous or inappropriate comment, his comical storytelling about what seemed to be an average day of his life, his dress sense, which was a mismatch of stripes, patterns or colours. That was the essence of Lou Potter. He was well loved and will be missed by all. Vale Lou.
Lou. Okay, we now come to question time. And as per our normal practice, I will read out the questions and our CEO, Mr. Greg Box, will read the answers. So question one from Anne Gross, and the topic is social media. Given the effectiveness that video has via social media, has council considered reaching their ratepayers this way? Given Mayor Holstead's fabulous video, Registering Your Furry Friend, a weekly presentation by Rochelle featuring what is happening around the Shire would quickly narrow the divide between ratepayers and how they view council.
Through the Mayor, thank you for your suggestion and positive feedback on our recent video content. We're glad to hear you enjoyed the Registering Your Furry Friend video. Council works hard to present information about our highlights, services and region in a way that's engaging for all audiences through a range of channels. Some of these channels include Mayor's messages, media releases, Coastal e-newsletter, videos and imagery, all of which can speak directly from the Mayor to the community. Council will continue to explore opportunities to use video where it's the most effective way to communicate.
Question 2, Susie Wicks, and it's special charge schemes. In Bass Coast, the special charge scheme can proceed with the complete absence of yes votes from ratepayers, as demonstrated in the Pioneer Bay. 23% voted no, 77 did not vote, without a single yes vote recorded. Bass Coast Shire Council proceeded with the scheme. Do the current councillors consider this to be reasonable treatment of ratepayers?
Through the Mayor, all projects in Victoria funded via special charge schemes must comply with special rates and charges provisions in accordance with the Local Government Act. As part of this process, property owners who wish to object are encouraged to make a submission. Should the number of objections not reach 50% of owners impacted by the scheme, Council will make the decision whether to proceed. Council always considers all ratepayers in its decision making.
Question 3, also from Susie, Surfy's Point. Is Council going to seal the car park at Surfy's Point as part of construction for the Esplanade Sunderland Bay Road to Batman Street? From the concept plan, it appears sealing of the car park is not happening, but Council had previously stated it would be done with the roadworks.
Through the Mayor, the car park is not included as part of the scheme area. Council may consider sealing the car park through its budget process in the future.
Question 4, Louise Lyle, and it's waste fees. At last month's council meeting, Councillor Morgan urged ratepayers to dispose of polystyrene at the local refuse centre. Are councillors aware that on top of the ever-increasing residential garbage costs, it also costs extra money to do the right thing and drop off polystyrene at the refuge centre?
Through the Mayor, polystyrene can now be recycled via any of Council's transfer stations. The draft 2025-26 fees and charges include a nominal charge for handling of polystyrene based on volume. The remaining costs of diverting this material from landfill is expected to be recovered via the sale of aggregated material to third-party processors. Question
5, Louise Lyle. Road tenders. Are Council's road construction tenders competitive individual projects-based tenders or a preferred tender for a specified period?
Through the Mayor, the procurement policy outlines principles such as value for money and fair competition. The policy permits various methods of procurement depending on the value of the works.
Question 6, our very own John Trite, who's in the gallery here, and the topic is leasing equipment. With the high value of depreciation costs within this year's budget, can Council tell us what are the leasing costs percentage and amounts of said equipment/motor vehicles being leased by Council separately?
Through the Mayor, Council does not lease operational assets such as plant, vehicles, machinery and equipment. This approach is informed by a cost-benefit assessment that considers interest rates, residual values and the fact that leasing does not provide Council with any income tax benefits.
Question 5 is from Louise. No, it's not. Question 7 is from John Trite, and the topic is Bernanite. How much is the depreciation for Bernanite in this year's budget?
Through the Mayor, the 2025-26 budgeted depreciation for Bernanite is $950,000.
Question 8 is from Philip Davey. Topic is special charge schemes. In the Sunderland Bay Surf Beach Special Charge Scheme, Council said you must have curbing and drainage on both sides of the street and footpath. Now Council says some don't have to have curbing, drainage or a footpath. Has the IDM changed or is Council now listening to ratepayers?
Through the Mayor, the Infrastructure Design Manual applies in the case of new developments in greenfield sites. In the case of retrofitting infrastructure to brownfield sites, different design solutions are often required. This provides some flexibility in determining preferred design options with the community.
Question 9, Ross Bencraft. Topic, ERDI policy. Question 1. Previous Council's changes to Bass Coast Shire Council's ERDI policy allows coastal hamlets to be carved up into random patchwork of streets featuring an array of different and inconsistent levels of finish. This seems incongruent.
Congruent.
What was that?
Inconsistent, congruent.
Okay, with Dell policy. Do our new councillors consider this to be satisfactory outcome for ratepayers? And question 2, Bass Coast Shire Council's early policy assists pensioners supporting a special charge scheme by actively contacting non-residential ratepayers on their behalf. In 2024, CEO Box confirmed that the same assistance will not be given to ratepayers opposing the scheme in their street. Do our new councillors consider this reasonable and democratic?
Through the Mayor. This question has previously been answered. Council will facilitate contacting non-resident ratepayers to ensure all community members are aware of a potential scheme. Councillors will make decisions on the appropriateness of treatments for individual scheme areas as they are presented to Council for a decision.
Question 10 is from Oliver and it's regarding live streaming. Other councils, including Frankston, stream their council's meetings in much higher video quality than Bass Coast, which leads to more community engagement and participation. Will Bass Coast Shire Council consider upgrading their streaming equipment so we can see our councillors clearly when they speak?
Through the Mayor. Council already uses high quality streaming equipment to output in full high definition for viewers. Council has opted to ensure all councillors remain visible on the live stream at any one time. This can differ from how other councils manage their live stream. Whilst there are no immediate plans to change our format, we continually review and implement changes to technologies as they arise.
Question 11, Philip Davey, and it's Engage page. The Engage page appears to be a way of council claiming they are fulfilling communications, sorry about the stuttering, and consultation requirements. What is the average percentage of ratepayers who make a comment or submission on each individual advertised project on the Engage page?
Through the Mayor. Council actively seeks to consult with residents, ratepayers and visitors to inform decisions. Council's Engage website is one of several tools that are used to support community consultation across the Shire. Responses on the website vary for different projects. In the last year, there have been 42,266 visitors to the Engage website, with 4,282 contributions from 3,008 contributors.
Question 12 is from Kevin Griffin and it's regarding the budget. Question 1. The draft budget shows 12 investment reserves valued at $27,236,000 and states that these reserves are not necessarily supported by matching cash investments. Will Council now please advise the community as to which of the 12 reserves are notional reserves that are not supported by matching cash investments? Part 2, the budget shows this council is not planning to produce even one underlying surplus during its term, instead planning to pass a $5.2 million deficit onto the next council in 2028. Will Council now please advise the community as to why it's planning to accept a succession of underlying deficits?
Through the Mayor. Question 1. Investment reserves reflect the appropriation of prior year funding statement surpluses for specific purposes. Contemporary accrual-based accounting practice does not require these reserves to be supported by matching cash investments. Question 2. The adjusted underlying surplus measures Council's ability to generate surplus in the ordinary course of business, excluding non-recurrent capital grants, non-monetary asset contributions and other contributions. This metric has been impacted by the need to remediate a closed landfill site in Wonthaggi. This expenditure is fully funded by a transfer from a reserve that has been established for this purpose.
Question 13 is from Graham Jolly, who's sitting here in the gallery as well, and its topic is Cow Street batteries. Mondo informed it has installed 6 new batteries in various streets in Cowes. In doing so, it negotiated favourable land leases for each site. Please provide the yearly lease payable to Council for each of the 6 street batteries.
Through the Mayor. Lease arrangements for the neighbourhood batteries installed under the Victorian Government's 100 Neighbourhood Batteries program that are hosted on council land have taken into consideration the benefit they will provide to the community and Council's Climate Change Action Plan 2020 to 2030. There is a register of leases and licences on Council's website. Specific terms of lease agreements are commercial in confidence.
Question 14 is also from Graham, and its topic is the Hilton Chadwick Reserve. For the development of Hilton Chadwick Reserve and its connecting turning lane, utilities of water, sewerage, stormwater and electricity to supply buildings and oval floodlighting are required. Where are all the connection points?
Through the Mayor. A master plan has been completed for the Hilton Chadwick Reserve, which provides high-level asset location only. Connection points to the reserve have not been determined as this work is completed in future stages of the project design process. As the project progresses, updates will be provided on Engage Bass Coast.
Question 15 is from Rob Parsons, and its topic is Kernot Bridge. Question 1, why has council not treated the petition regarding the urgent repair of Kernot Bridge, signed by 476 residents, as an urgent matter? And was any vote or resolution considered to deal with the petition earlier than August? If not, why not? Part 2, will council commit to monthly public updates on the design, funding and reconstruction of Kernot Bridge? And will councillors meet their affected residents and petition organisers before the August meeting to understand the ongoing hardship caused by the closure?
Through the Mayor. Question 1. Whilst the petition is proposed to be tabled at our meeting today on the 21st of May 2025, council meeting, and report to follow on the 20th of August 2025, there is currently a significant amount of work being undertaken. This includes the design of repair and upgrade of the bridge, as well as advocating for grant funding from the state government to rebuild the bridge as a priority. Question 2. Council and councillors will continue to liaise with the community regarding their concerns and provide updates as they arise through our various communication channels, including the Engage Bass Coast website.
Question 16 is from Sue Chadwick, and its topic is cows. Council claims that rezoning cows 80 acres reserve land will cost $250,000. Ratepayers wish for the council to ensure safe financial stability and recreational opportunities for our community's future. Will the council explore putting a covenant on the land in the meantime?
Through the Mayor. Council considers the registration of a covenant on the land to be superfluous to ensuring the long-term certainty of the land being delivered for recreational purposes, particularly given Council already owns the land.
Thank you. Question 17 is also from Sue Chadwick, Golden, and its topic is Golden Cypress. Why was a golden cypress planted in a local park when these specifically grown trees should be planted in Thompson Avenue? The Shire is not communicating with friends of the Thompson Avenue Golden Cypress Committee. The History Board publicly stated that fact. It is not true. Why?
Through the Mayor. Council continues to propagate, maintain and replace the golden cypress trees in Thompson Avenue cows as they are listed on Council's significant tree register and with the National Trust. This does not preclude Council from also planting golden cypresses at other locations. Council will continue to work with the Friends of the Thompson Avenue Golden Cypress Committee.
Thank you, Mr Box. Well done. Now, I apologise, but I'm going to have to pause this meeting for 2 minutes while I take a personal break. Okay, thank you. Welcome back. Apologies for that. Brings us to part number 6 of the meeting, notices of motion, of which we have 6.1, parking report for Phillip Island, and Councillor Bower to introduce the motion without speaking into it, please.
Thank you, Mrs. Mayor, Deputy Mayor. And it should be not just for Phillip Island, but for the entire Shire. So the report would be is that a report be prepared addressing the parking arrangements for the Shire for both high season and off-season times to be incorporated as part of the integrated transport study.
Thank you, Councillor Bower. Can I have a seconder for the motion? Yep. Councillor Temby. Councillor Bower, you may now speak to your motion.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. In the last council, I moved a similar motion concentrating on Phillip Island. That motion was defeated by 1 vote. The reasoning at the time was wait for the integrated transport study. This motion is for the entire Shire because car parking is a problem all over the Shire. We now have had briefings on the findings of the ITS, which was followed by a briefing on parking waivers. I acknowledge that the ITS is out for public consultation, but I think it needs to be addressed whilst the consultation process is happening. There is a fundamental fact that cannot be escaped by either briefings. The only way to get to Bass Coast is by car. The ITS deals mainly with methods of transport when you get here and is very light on strategies how we accommodate the cars. Parking waivers deal with the future car parking arrangement, not the here and now. Unfortunately, we are not the futuristic Jeston family at this point of time. You can't drive here, push a button, and the car folds into a briefcase, and then you store it in a cupboard. Community members constantly bail me up, begging me to do something about parking. Speaking as an Island Ward councillor, if we want to project ourselves as a premier tourist destination, then we have to provide a much better parking arrangements. Hoping that people will ride bikes and use public transport on demand buses will require a monumental mind shift. A simple example is the mum and dad going to the shopping after coming to Millale. Nobody is going to wait for an infrequent bus with 3 shopping bags. Even with a bike pannier riding around cows on a bike is problematic and not what the majority of tourists will gravitate to. Our local residents are constantly compromised for parking spaces, especially around the CBD, Streets of Cows. When the community hospital comes on later this year, the transit centre will be overloaded. Even the brand new cultural centre doesn't have a disabled parking bay on the Thompson Avenue side. The Airbnbs are putting great pressure on the island. We want and need the tourists, but with the tourists come the cars, and lots of them. I'm a realist. This problem will not disappear. Even if we can identify suitable areas, it'll take a long time via the 4 and 10-year plans to construct new suitable parking lots. But we need to look at the here and now. We have to alleviate the parking congestion. So let's put the pedal to the metal, get out of first gear, and get a report done that gives a realistic parking solutions for Bass Coast Shire. I commend the motion to the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Bower. Councillor Temby.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor. Car parking is recognised by many of us as being a problem in parts of the Shire, particularly in high usage periods of the year. But it's really important that the integrated transport study occur because it looks at all of the factors that impact parking, and it's important that the big picture is investigated prior to individual decisions are made. So, yes, the ITS needs to come before looking at particular parking problems.
Thank you, Councillor Temby. Anyone else like? Yes?
As an Island Ward councillor, my comments will also be specific to parking in cows, as that's one of the key areas that obviously Councillor Bower is concerned about. I can agree with some of the ideas put forward in the motion. I can support the idea of the boat ramp car parks being able to be used for cars without trailers in the off-season. I also agree that some of the street parking around Airbnbs is getting out of hand. I also believe that the Cowes Streetscape Plan does allow for an increase in disabled parking. But the answer to where to put the car is simple. Visitors do have to drive to Bass Coast Health, but then they park their cars at their accommodation and they leave it there. We know that Phillip Island is a family holiday destination, and families would be very happy when they're on their holidays to walk or ride their bikes into town. They want to get their kids off screens. They have time on holidays to take a leisurely walk, and they're usually fit enough to enjoy the exercise. The key that is missing is not parking, but the infrastructure to make it safe to cycle or walk. Families on holiday are currently discouraged from walking or riding because the bike lanes and footpaths are few and far between. I'd much prefer the money be spent on that than on a multi-level car park. With bike lanes and footpaths, visitors would not be taking up car spaces, and our resident population, who are on average older and therefore much more likely to need to drive to the shops, can still have access to the car spaces available to them. Having said that, with increased bike lanes and footpaths, those residents may also be more amenable to using motorised buggies, which would further reduce the need for more parking. Despite what Councillor Bauer says, it is our job as councillors to think about the big picture. Solving a perceived parking problem that really only occurs in the peak holiday season by building a 2-storey car park in the middle of Cowes is, in my opinion, short-sighted. I ran for council because I want to dream big for this shire, and I know that Councillor Bauer accuses me of being too idealistic, but we have an opportunity with the integrated transport strategy to put a long-term strategy on the table that moves towards our ideal, so why not take it? Can we trial on-demand buses over the next summer period? It doesn't have to be a big commitment. It's simply a trial, or a couple of minibuses making a circuit around the island. See how it works. We don't have to commit to anything beyond a trial.
20 seconds, Councillor Bell.
Destination Phillip Island and Nature Parks are promoting Phillip Island as an ecotourism destination, and we should be getting on board to support that brand. And discouraging the overuse of cars would be key to that, in my opinion. We know that there are other areas around the world that have no cars, so I'm not saying we should go that far, but it wouldn't be outlandish to suggest we start thinking more in that direction and more holistically to integrate the disparate shire strategies like ITS and tourism
Councillor Bell, if you can, please.
to form a coherent strategic direction for the shire. Thank you.
Thank you. Well done. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? Yes.
Can I just comment? Can Councillor Bell request an extension of time?
I don't need it. I finished. Thank you.
I would like to speak to the motion, but only, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'm wondering if there's a way to perhaps see a way through this with both intentions here, because I hear what you're saying, Councillor Bell, and I also agree with Councillor Bauer that we do need more and adequate parking as well. So I think this doesn't preclude either of those things happening, and so I will be voting in favour of the motion, but I don't think that precludes your ideas of extra infrastructure and encouragement of avenues to have safe non-car transport as well. But I also think that we need to lead as a council from the way that we behave in our own transport measures. Are we using public transport wherever we can? Are we carpooling wherever we can as councillors and as officers? And I think that leadership starts with us. So, and until we start walking that talk, I don't think we can push it on our communities.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor O'Brien.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm in the curious situation of agreeing with both Councillor Bauer and Councillor Tracy. I think with this, while we are begging the question because we have the integrated transport study coming and underway, and we don't quite know what's going to come out of that. But I do think it is important that, as this motion proposes, it is important to consider that we do have cars, we're stuck with them for a long time, and that any integrated transport study, that there are some central issues around cars which need to be addressed soon, which can't wait for the kind of changes, you know, that we're proposing will happen over time within the community. That said, I'm very hopeful that the integrated transport study does look at roads and does consider that roads are not just for cars. Roads are for people to get around, and that where we can have safe routes that will accommodate both vehicular traffic and people on mopeds or golf buggies or whatever, that we need to think much more creatively about how our roads are used, that they're not just for cars, and then we'll start to solve some of these problems. But I support the motion because I do think it's important that we do consider that cars will be with us for a long time. We can't get ahead of the game. What we have to do, and it's the toughest part, we have to absorb both things that are happening. Cars are still with us. There are changes happening. What we have to do is work out what to do within that nexus and where we're heading.
Thank you. Right on 2 minutes too. Well done, Councillor O'Brien. Anyone else want to speak to or against this notice of motion?
Yes.
Councillor Thompson?
Thank you very much. I'm in the same position that I agree with both councillors. In particular, I'm a disabled person and I find it really difficult to get parking anywhere in Bass Coast, and particularly at Cowes. And we have an ageing population, where our population of Bass Coast is quite older, and so a lot of us can't use buses and we can't traverse along paths. We need to use our cars. However, I can see the merits of a bus on call, and I think that's a good avenue to pursue as well. So jointly, I accept both councillors. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? No? Before I go back to you, Councillor Bauer, can I just seek some clarification, please, if I can, from you, Ms Taylor? The ramifications of this report or motion, seeing as it is already out for consultation, is there any blowback or is there any possible unintended consequence?
Through the Deputy...
Sorry for no notice as well.
Through the Deputy Mayor, with the draft integrated transport strategy currently being out for consultation, we're not yet privy to the community feedback on the document, so it could be a little bit premature to implement some of these actions if the sentiment from the community through the consultation process is that they shouldn't occur or should occur differently. There is an opportunity for councillors through consideration of the integrated transport strategy in coming months to incorporate the actions from the notice of motion into the document. That would be a cleaner way to organise how we're going to deliver on the strategy going forward.
Thank you. Councillor Bauer, would you like to...
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. First of all, the motion asks for a report which can actually be coming out of the findings of the integrated transport study, and the motion asks that this motion be incorporated into the transport study, so it's not negating anything there. Secondly, I acknowledge Councillor Bell's input into this motion, and I'm not against it at all. I totally agree with looking at alternative arrangements to get around the island, and I thank her for her contributions here. The problem is that in so many ways, this is representing what the community wants. We do something about parking. I'm sure I don't want to speak on behalf of the other Island Ward councillors, but I get this nearly every time I walk down the street. What are you doing about the effing parking problem? So I'm bringing this motion forward so that this can be tailored into the integrated transport study, not negating the transport study. It becomes another part of it, and an important part, because the briefing we had did not address this, in my opinion, adequately. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. With that, we'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the notice of motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do I know? I can't even remember.
Only in the division.
Only for division.
No, we don't need to.
No, passed.
Thank you, councillors.
Okay, 6.2, inclusion of public toilets on Olive Justice Place. Notice of motion moved by Councillor Bauer. Can you introduce your notice of motion without speaking to it?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. Before we do that, I'd like to move an amendment to the motion.
Okay,
I'd like to amend the motion that says, as part of stage 2 of the Cows Streetscape plan, a public toilet block be constructed at the Olive Justice Place.
okay. Can I have a second to that notice of motion? Oh, sorry, to the amendment. Yep. Councillor Temby. All in favour of the amendment, accepting the amendment? Passed. Can I have a seconder for the amended notice of motion? You've already spoken to it, haven't you?
No. We've just adopted that. I can.
Okay, go for it.
Right, councillors, please give me a moment because my speech now is a little different and I've got to pick and choose out of it. Mr. Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. No, can't say that. This gives us an opportunity for the Cows Streetscape plan to include a toilet block at Olive Justice Place. Even in the officer's report, the importance of Olive Justice Place to the community is realised. I've been informed that the Olive Justice Place is listed as stage 5 of the Cows Streetscape plan. If we use the Tracks and Trails program as a guide, and at the speed that those stages are being developed, then the Cows Streetscape stage 5 will not be built this century. Take that out. I have been admonished by residents that if we have $8 million, why we're not spending the money on the Cows Recreation Reserve. It is very hard to argue that logic. Making Thompson Avenue one-way and planting trees with pretty lights won't bring extra tourists or an extra dollar to Cows, but they'll come anyway. What we do need is facilities to service the people, residents and tourists alike, who visit the CBD of Cows. There is a toilet block on the beach at the Esplanade, but we desperately need a toilet block at the top end of Thompson Avenue at the intersection of Chapter Street. The current thinking is that people can go to the Cows Cultural Centre. I believe that's unrealistic. People will be too embarrassed to go to that imposing building to use the loos. Also, it's not signposted as a convenience centre. We have an opportunity here to build a discrete toilet block in the far northwest corner of Olive Justice Place as part of stage 2 and not impact on our budget. All we need to do is, we'll take that out at stage 1, sorry. This is really on the fly now. I'm very confident that neither the community nor insurers will notice what we've had to rejig for the current plan to accommodate the inclusion of the ablution amenity. Fellow councillors, I hope you see the common sense in this motion and support it. I commend the motion to the chamber in a very dislocated speech.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Temby.
Look, I think we all see the logic in having the toilets in a central place in Cows. It can't be put into stage 1, but moving it from stage 5 to stage 2 would seem to be a very logical way to bring that forward and have them available sooner rather than later.
Thank you, Councillor Temby. Would anyone else like to speak to the amended motion? Brian.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, my personal feelings, and in fact, reflected by a lot of residents, is that Olive Justice Place, with its got the fake grass on the plastic grass on one end, a 20-foot shipping container sort of chipped open on the other end, is really not a reflection of the generosity of the gift. And while it forms part of that broader plan for that end of Cows, why have it in the fifth stage? You know, the beautification and the landscaping there. Why not, as Councillor Bauer has proposed, bring it into the second stage, and then we're honouring the generosity of the gift. For people in with needing disability access to toilets, going down that hill down Thompson Avenue to access the toilets at the bottom, for those in wheelchairs perhaps, is difficult, as is getting up around Burnanite or going around to the back in the transit centre. So there is a very good reason, being that that's a milling point at Cowes. There is a very good reason to have a discrete block placed there in Olive Justice Place as part of landscaping and beautification work, and as a way, it's in the plan anyway, but as a way of honouring the generosity of that gift.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would Councillor Bell?
I don't think there's a need for a toilet there because it's only one block down to the Esplanade toilets and one block to Burnanite, and then there's another toilet at the transit centre. I'm curious to know how far people have to walk in other townships to get to a toilet. I'm pretty sure it would be more than one block. The reason there was a toilet block on that corner previously is because it was the bus stop, it was the transit centre, but now that transit centre has moved to its current location, and so the toilet block has also moved. I do definitely want to see Olive Justice Place done justice. Sorry for using the word twice there. And it would be nice to maybe go back to the original request and see what Olive Justice had, why the land was given, and what was the original intention for that bit of land.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Thompson.
As a disabled person, let me tell you, walking 1 or 2 blocks is a long way. And if you need to use the public facilities, you need it as close as possible. And I personally would find it difficult to get down to the other facilities down the other end. So I'm all for this motion, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? No? Yep. So, Councillor Bauer, would you like to speak again or put it to a vote?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since there was a negative comment, I will speak. The Thompson Avenue at the base of a hill, Chapel Street is on top of the hill. Burnanite is another block away where the transit centre is, and it is a milling point. It's the middle of the CBD area where people can then either go to restaurants there, or if they're on the beach, they're on the beach. I think this is a logical place where to allocate a toilet block, and I hope that people, fellow councillors, see it in this light. No.
Put it to a vote. Thank you, Councillor Bauer. All in favour of the amended notice of motion? That is carried.
Thank you, councillors.
Okay, part 7, petitions, joint letters, deputations, correspondence. 7.1, petition relating to Reid Street, Rill, Queen Street, Wonthaggi, Park Lane, Cowes and Koala Estate, Cowes. Can I have someone move and second that we accept these petitions?
No.
Councillor Edwards, seconded Councillor Bell. Would you like to speak to?
So we just move, this is the first one first, 7.1, and we're not combining the two of 7.2. Okay. So I'd just like to, I don't want to have much to say on this one, apart from I just want to acknowledge the concern that we've had from many residents on these items. And I do also acknowledge that there's a history here that perhaps people weren't aware of when they purchased their property, that the dust suppression status was in place. And the council has listened, and we've delayed this process accordingly. I think that's a good thing. But at the same time, obviously we need to find a way through this that can economically be viable and meet their concerns as well, hopefully. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Bell.
I just look forward to hearing from the community about the amazing work that the team will do now with the engagement and consultation. I hope things move along at a sufficient pace to ensure we don't reach April next year with the same concerns, and we've got solid plans and communication with these communities over the next 12 months.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Edwards, would you like to sum up or put it to a vote?
Put it to vote. I'm happy with
To a vote, all in favour of the recommendation? Carried. Okay, 7.2, urgent repairs of Kernot Bridge. Council receives the petition urgent repairs on Kernot Bridge to lie on the table with a report to be presented no later than August 2025 to the council meeting and advise the head petitioner of council's decision. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Mover Councillor Edwards, seconder Councillor Thompson. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I acknowledge that this is actually in the Western Port ward, not in Bonorong. I'd just also like to acknowledge that there has been a significant amount of communication, both with councillors and with council staff, with the lead petitioner. And I want to thank the community for their concerns. There's some very valid concerns around the safety of that area and getting traffic moving. At the same time, we are aware that council officers have been doing a lot of work on this one in the background and communicating with the petitioner, so I'd like to thank them on that. And just to also note that Councillor Thompson and I are actually meeting with residents at Kernot tomorrow and we'll have a look at the bridge then ourselves as well.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Thompson.
I would also like to endorse the remarks by Councillor Edwards and also express my concern on behalf of the local residents regarding the building delays and the time to traverse around Stewart Road. And as Councillor Edwards said, we will be meeting with residents tomorrow and we can organise further meetings, including officers, to meet with residents later on. However, I would also like to acknowledge the expertise of the officers and the contractors who are doing their best to have a timely outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Would anyone else like to speak to or against the recommendation? No. Councillor Edwards. Put it to a vote. Put it to a vote. All in favour of? That is carried. Okay. Brings us to the first report requiring council decision, and it is 8.1 quarterly performance, quarter 3, January, March to 2025. To introduce is Mr. Phil Moulter.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide advice on council's performance for the period ending 31 March 2025, including its performance against the annual action plan, financial performance compared to budget, and capital works project delivery. The annual action plan contains 21 actions and initiatives for the financial year, of which 5 have been completed, 13 on track for completion by June 25, while 1 is at risk and 2 require attention. Council's year-to-date operating surplus of $28.7 million is $10.9 million favourable to budget, and its forecast full-year surplus of $7.5 million is $4.4 million favourable. This is mainly due to the receipt of unbudgeted capital grants. Council's capital works year-to-date expenditure is $18.39 million, $2.6 million more than budget, and forecast full-year capital expenditure is $31.98 million, which is $7.88 million more than budget. This reflects the impact of carryovers from the previous year and new externally funded capital works projects for marine structures. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Phil Moulter. Can I have somebody to move and second this report? Councillor Thompson, and second, Councillor Temby. Councillor Thompson.
I've read through this and I'm completely satisfied. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Oh, sorry.
No, that's it. Thank you.
You, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Temby.
Exactly the same comments, yes.
Thank you, Councillor Temby. Anyone else like to speak to? Yes, Councillor Edwards.
Could I just ask a question to you, Deputy Mayor, of Mr. I apologise, I'm not getting your pronunciation.
Malta.
Malta, thank you. Could you please advise us what the cash at bank is and the interest rate applied at the 31st of March?
Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, I can advise, in response to Councillor Edwards' question, that at the end of the quarter we had $16.673 million in the bank, and we were receiving interest of 4.45%, or 35 basis points more than the official RBA cash rate at that stage. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Philmott. Is that happy with that?
Thank you.
Yep. Would you like to speak, or that was it, Councillor Edwards?
No, that was it,
Just
thank
a
you.
clarification. Anyone else like to speak to or against? No? Councillor Thompson?
Yes, I'd like to move it. Thank you.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of? Carried. Okay, 8.2, request for authorisation to commence the planning scheme amendment for the land at 58 to 62 Dunsmore Road, Cowes, to be introduced by Ms Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council an application to rezone land at 58 to 62 Dunsmore Road in Cowes from low density to general residential. The rezoning application has been assessed by Council officers, and it's recommended that we seek authorisation from the Minister for Planning to prepare a planning scheme amendment. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Would somebody like to move and second? Councillor Bell, and second? Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Bell.
May I speak? Yes, thank you, Donna, Ms Taylor. I think to protect our town boundaries on Phillip Island and also support the requisite growth infill's the only way, and so I'm curious as to how this piece of land has stayed vacant all this time, as its location is so central. It's close to the Cowes Primary in one direction and the beach and the footy oval in the other direction. So I definitely support changing this zone to general residential to accommodate 16 houses rather than just 4, and hopefully they're more affordable for families and young people entering the property market.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor O'Brien.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, look, I agree with those expressed views. This is a site which is clearly suitable for residential, and we should be making use of those opportunities.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Would anyone else like to speak to or against?
Sorry, just a question.
Yes, clarification.
And
Ms Taylor?
yes, if that's possible. And it can be taken on notice because I recognise I haven't asked this one prior to now. Just with the planning scheme amendment, I acknowledge that the report says that it's been absorbed in operational costs. But can we get an idea of what that kind of cost would be? So of the change in terms of, yeah.
Through the Mayor, the costs associated with the amendment are generally officer time. I'd have to take on notice the amount of time officers have spent on assessing this application to get to this point.
That'd be great. And just an estimate is absolutely fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Ms Taylor, anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? No? Councillor Bell, would you like to sum up or put it to a vote?
Put it to the vote.
All in favour of the recommendation? Carried. Okay, 8.3. Planning application PD planner 2024/002-056 for land at 227 to 229 Settlement Road in Cowes, and to be introduced by Ms Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present to Council a planning application for the use of the land as a medical centre, subdivision into 2 lots, buildings and works, and display of signage at 227 to 229 Settlement Road in Cowes. Since publication of the agenda, the applicant has amended the proposal to reduce the number of practitioners on site from 9 to 8. This has reduced the car parking required by the Bass Coast Planning Scheme. This means that a planning permit for a waiver of car parking is no longer required. The officer's report and recommendations have been amended to reflect this, and objectors have been advised. The amended application has been assessed by officers, and it is recommended that a notice of decision to grant a planning permit issue. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor, and I note Councillor O'Brien over here with his arm about to drop off as an alternative recommendation.
Yes, I propose an alternate motion that in relation to planning permit application ending in 2056 for subdivision of the land into 2 lots, use of the land for medical centre buildings and works, display of illuminated business identification signage in the mixed-use zone, and design and development overlay located at 227 to 229 Settlement Road, Cowes. The Council resolves to reject the application by the proponent as it now stands for a medical centre at that site on the following grounds.
Okay, so there it is as it reads on screen. Councillor O'Brien?
Yes, if I can speak briefly.
Yeah, just before you speak, I'll get somebody to second. Yep, Councillor Bauer. Now you can have 3 minutes. How's that?
Now, this motion is being put forward by all 3 Island Ward councillors, and we agree with residents on the loss of amenity, on the loss of neighbourhood character, and of their broader rights for maintenance and protection of the quiet residential nature of this quiet cul-de-sac. Note that neither Island Ward councillors nor residents of Market Close are opposed to the siting of the medical centre there. Their opposition is to the parking and access arrangements, and their disappointment that the proponent wishes to dismiss their reasonable requests to review and alter those access arrangements. The community whom we represent and with whom we will stand when raising reasonable concerns about planning proposals that impact on their neighbourhoods, in this instance, seek reasonable changes to be addressed by the developer to minimise impact on their lives and safety. The community comments are as follows, in part with some additions and subtractions. We do not view the use of the site for a medical centre as unreasonable. However, the location of the main point of access and the car parking area behind, being via Market Close, presents an issue for the following reasons. There will be a significant increase in traffic movements in Market Close, in particular during peak time. The increase to the traffic movements may result in unreasonable safety and amenity impacts to Market Close and an inappropriate high level of traffic and parking spillover. The additional traffic and car parking in Market Close will undermine the residential character of the street. The overflow of car parking from the medical centre will likely result in Market Close being utilised for on-street parking with safety and amenity impacts, as vehicles will need to travel down Market Close to U-turn at the cul-de-sac. It's a dead-end street. Or utilise residential crossovers to turn around and exit Market Close. And you need to note that Market Close has no alternate street connections. There is a consistent development pattern along Settlement Road of car parking areas within the front setbacks as well as multiple crossovers. As the site contains 2 existing crossovers to Settlement Road and has been clearly used for access for this site in the past, there is an opportunity for these crossovers to be utilised as part of the medical centre proposal and to relocate the car parking area within the front setback. The depth of the site allows for the car parking area of the medical centre to be provided within that site frontage or with on-site access through to a rear car park, with Settlement Road being more suitable to carry the additional traffic movements given the road's higher classification under the Bass Coast Shire Road Register.
Well done. Did it in 10. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Mr Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. I really can't add much more to what Councillor O'Brien has just said so eloquently, but I will say all 3 Island Ward councillors went to visit this site on the corner of Market Close and Settlement Road. After discussions with the residents, it is clear to me that if we approve the application, the residents will appeal it to VCAT, and if we reject the application, the developer will appeal it to VCAT. From looking at the plans and footprint in the attached documents of the development, I cannot understand why the Settlement Road access is not better utilised. To my untrained eye, all access to various parts of this development could be achieved by a Settlement Road. Market Close is a very narrow road, very hard to manoeuvre in, and therefore I support the alternate motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Would anyone else like to speak to or against Councillor Tim?
Just a comment that it would seem to me that if the building was moved to the rear of the block, there's probably no need to change the design of the building, and it would meet the expressed concerns of the residents of Market Close.
Thank you, councillor Temby. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? No? Councillor O'Brien, would you like to sum up or put it to a vote?
Just a closing comment or two. I need to get the glasses on again. Look, it's all over. It is about the access to this medical centre. So no one's saying we don't want a medical centre. We know though why it's proposed. There's one developer who wants to put a medical centre there. There are 23 residents whose rights to quiet residential amenity, are being run roughshod over by the proposal as it now stands. And it is right, as Councillor Tenby has mentioned, that it's simply a matter of pushing this thing further to the back. Now, is that as pretty? No, it's not. But who stands in front of a medical centre and says, well, that's a fine piece of architecture there? So there really should be no issues here. And what is at issue is that this proposed medical centre has been developed without sufficient consultation with the community it impacts upon. And if we have one role as councillors, it's to look after those communities that we represent. It's a very small ask. Well, it isn't at this stage, but it could have been a very small ask, by the community early in the planning, to protect Market Close. And the simple fact is as well that having residents' cars going in and out, plus the 36 cars an hour, that's 72 car movements in and out onto Settlement Road, will increase the danger of accessing Settlement Road for the residents who live there. The siting of this, if you haven't been there, is just below the crest of the hill there. The crest is around where Betsy's Glass is, and even in a four-wheel drive, it's difficult to see cars coming. You don't see the roof of the car until they've hit Betsy's Glass. So look, it's a sensible proposition, and it should have been considered. The residents' views should have been considered. It should have been considered in designing this. Not opposed to the medical centre, opposed to how the medical centre is sited on that block and the dismissal of residents' concerns.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the amended recommendation as...
Alternative.
What did I say?
Amended.
Alternative, sorry. Well done, Councillor Bauer. As on screen. Carried. 8.4, the Esplanade, Sunderland Bay Road to Batman Street. Intent to declare a special charge screen to be introduced by Ms Taylor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to present a preferred concept option and funding mechanism for a road and drainage upgrade project along the Esplanade between Sunderland Bay Road and Batman Street in Surf Beach. Following consultation with landowners, it is recommended that Council adopt the preferred design concept and commence the statutory engagement process with residents. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Bell, and seconded Councillor Bell. Councillor Bell.
I don't really have anything to say on this.
Thank you, Councillor Bell. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you. I've been really put on the hop here. I will say that this, if we go back to the other problems we had with the special charge scheme over the larger area, this is now another one of these we're taking section by section to do the sealing and the drainage of the roads. I think this is a very sensible approach by officers, and I congratulate them on the way they're approaching this. And I think it's really good, well done that these residents, I believe, from the reports, is looking forward to it. And I hope that this is then gradually rolled out across the whole estate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? As it reads, Councillor O'Brien.
Deputy Mayor, thank you very much. Yes, look, this is this is a really sensible work, and it's very broadly supported, by the community there along the Esplanade. In fact, there are residents, on either side of the Esplanade who are hoping, that it will extend down their streets, and they're also hoping that seeing this in place, that those other residents who are sort of holdouts, if you like, in Batman Street and one at the other end, not sure what it's called, but that are holding out, that perhaps sort of see it and think, well, that's added quite a bit of value to those properties. It's reduced the dust. Maybe it is time that it extended down our streets. I think that it's a difficult thing for councils like Bass Coast Shire Council, when there are so many of these sort of brownfield places, to be rectified, that were built one way, with dirt roads, when Phillip Island was far less busy than it is now. And so, it's up to us, these councils and those residents that are there now, to perhaps accept that, we've got a fair bit of catch up to do on a lot of these, in a lot of these streets, not only for safety, but for reducing dust and for really improving the amenity of the people who are there now, living on dirt roads with lots of cars, running up and down. So yeah, look, I'm all for this.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation as it reads? No? Councillor Bell, would you like to summarise?
Just put it to the vote.
No worries at all. Thank you. Put it to a vote. All in favour of? Carried. 8.5. Awarded tender number 25001 to the Wonthaggi Netball Club Pavilion construction, to be introduced by Mr Phil Moulter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This report presents the outcome of the tender evaluation for the Wonthaggi Netball Club Pavilion construction. 12 conforming submissions were received, and the recommendation to award the contract to TS Constructions is expected to result in savings of $490,000 for council, while pleasingly also providing work to a proven local supplier who has demonstrated commitment to our quadruple bottom line principles and also has the capacity and capability to complete the work within the required timeline. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Phil Moulter. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Moved Councillor Morgan, seconded Councillor Edwards. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll just be quick in this and say that we're pretty happy to be supporting Wonthaggi Netball Club and any other local sporting organisations within our community, particularly out in the regions. Our communities gather around local sport. It's good for our kids, it's good for our social connection, and it's good for our health. So, yeah, thrilled to see this coming along.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Edwards.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Anyone else like to speak to or against this recommendation? No. Councillor Morgan, we'll put it to a vote.
Please.
Put it to a vote. All in favour of? Carried. 8.6, Tracks and Trails Delivery Plan 2025 to 2029, to be introduced by Ms Taylor, who's having a starring role.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide an updated delivery plan for Council's Tracks and Trails strategy for the next 4 years. The report outlines the priority projects and proposed funding methodology. It is recommended that the revised delivery plan be adopted. Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Ms Taylor. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this recommendation? Councillor Morgan, and seconded Councillor Tenby. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you again, Deputy Mayor. Tracks and trails are my favourite kind of transport. I may have been quiet in the discussion about car parking and roads and planning, but when it comes to active travel, this is where I really think that our council and shire should be focusing. We cry out about the lack of spaces for car parking, and then we don't talk about alternatives. And it's really great to see these actually quite extensive plans in action. As a Bunurong councillor, I'm absolutely thrilled that the Wonthaggi to Inverloch shared path is happening. I can't wait to ride on it, and I'll get on my bike and be rocking up to council meetings in my Lycra any day now.
I'll start about this.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Temby.
Thank you. I support Councillor Morgan's comments and look forward to the image when you arrive. But in addition to that, this is further opportunities for people to get out in the open, to get fit. I know lots and lots of people who use the trails all the time, and the development of the trails to me is a really important addition to the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Temby. Anyone else like to speak to or against?
I have
Councillor Edwards.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Deputy Mayor, I'd like to ask a question of Ms Taylor. In relation to the Tracks and Trails strategy, and I've had a number of constituents actually contact me with concerns about the potential impact of the Wonthaggi-Nyora Trail. Does this report have any implications on that potential track?
Through the Deputy Mayor, the delivery plan does not provide any future allocation for the design or delivery of the Woolamaya to Nyora shared path.
Okay. So that's no funding from council at this point in time? No.
Through the Deputy Mayor, there's no allocation at this stage. Council could allocate funds through the long-term financial plan for the project. However, at this point in time, there's no allocation.
Thank you.
That's all, Councillor Edwards?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, anyone, Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I do notice in the report that stages 4 and 5 of the Cows to Rill Trail are in here, and I'm very pleased to see that, because that's been going for a long, long time, and of all the tracks and trails on the island, at least, that is the most important one to complete in a safe way. And I look forward to it being completed in the next 4-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Anyone else like to speak to Councillor O'Brien?
Yeah, look, I sort of feel a bit like the dog in the manger on this one. I'm very committed to alternative transport. I'm very committed to reducing and providing opportunity to reduce our carbon footprint. I'm not sure, though, that the community is right with us on all of this. And I know that the Wonthaggi to Inverloch, Councillor Morgan's informed me that there's very strong, community support of that. So I'm just not sure about the quantum here. And one of the reasons I'm not sure about the quantum is that I'm worried about the lack of quantum to other projects that we might be looking at, such as the sports ovals at the Hilton Chadwick Reserve. So yes, look, I support this, but I feel that we are ahead of the community on these and on the community use. Of course, it's moot as to whether we complete the road to Rill and then we suddenly see a whole bunch of people riding to Rill. Will that occur, or are we 3 or 4 or 5 years ahead? My view about alternate transport is that we need to look to the future and to look really carefully at the way roads are used. And roads are used almost to the exclusion of everything else by vehicles.
Councillor O'Brien, can I ask you just to stick to the...
Yeah, okay. And so in building a track and a trail to Rill, why are we doing that? Why are we perhaps not just making the roads safer for people to use it? I don't believe that roads are just for cars, 4-wheel drives, utes. I believe that roads are for everyone. Yes. And so that's why I question the quantum, the amount of money that we're putting towards tracks and trails. I'll put my hand up in support of the motion, but I just want to make it clear that this is something that I think we're way ahead of the community.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. I don't want to throw a shadow over this report, but there's one particular shared path, the Guy Road shared path. I go up that road constantly and I never see anybody on it. It's not used very often, and so I think we have to be mindful where we do put these trails. And I'm all for the other three, but I am concerned about the Woolamai-Nyora rail trail. I know it's just the feasibility study and it's completed, but I'll be concerned if it goes further. But I'm definitely for the Wonthaggi to Inverloch, the Cowsville stages 2 to 3 and 4 to 5. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this?
May I have a point of clarification from the officers, please? The Cows to Rail Stage 4 and 5 in your report says subject to funding. Does that mean that it will be then put on a black block, or do we have to commit monies from the Shire to complete it?
Through the Deputy Mayor, the report highlights that Cows to Rail Stage 4 and 5 are the #1 priority in terms of future projects to be funded, whether that be through external funding, council funding, or a mix of both. What this report highlights is that it will be the priority in terms of new infrastructure to come online in the short term.
Thank you.
Okay, would anyone else like to speak to or against this notice of motion? If not, back to you, Councillor Morgan. Would you like to summarise or put it to a vote?
Thanks, Deputy Mayor. I'll just make a few quick remarks in response to Councillor O'Brien's comments. I'm a Bunurong ward councillor, so I don't spend too much time on the island, or certainly not as much time as I would like. But when it comes to particularly the Cows to Rail path, the question put was why do we need a separate trail and why can't people just use the road? And I do completely recognise that our roads are too car-centric in this country, but as a lot of cycling safety culture advocates would tell you, paint is not infrastructure, it's dangerous. And unless we are going to propose dramatically reducing speed limits across Phillip Island, I would strongly advocate for as much investment as in active travel as we can possibly get out of local government, state government and federal.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. We'll put it to a vote. All in favour of the recommendation as it reads? Carried. 8.7. Haven't heard anything about this one. The Emergency Services Volunteer Fund, to be presented by Mr Phil Moulter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This report responds to notice of motion requesting further information on the financial and operational impacts of the Emergency Services Volunteers Fund, which will replace the existing Fire Services Protection Levy from 1 July 2025. This new levy has now been passed in the Upper House and will result in significant increases in the charges that Council needs to collect on behalf of the state, especially for primary producers and owners of vacant land. It will result in a 53% increase across the Shire, or $5.77 million extra, which equates to some 10% of Council's annual rates. There has been significant lobbying and advocacy by the sector and peak bodies, including farmers, the Municipal Association of Victoria and the Victorian Farmers Federation. This has resulted in a small reduction of 13% in the rate that has been levied to primary producers, as well as a commitment to ensure funds are wholly expended on relevant emergency services, and this will be reported to the community. The government has also flagged that it will commit to working on an implementation package for local councils who have to implement and refine their systems to manage the complexities associated with the new levy, including the need to differentiate between principal places of residence with effect from 2026. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Phil Moulter. Now, I've already got a mover in Councillor Edwards. I've got a seconder in Councillor Thompson. Before I throw to you, Councillor Edwards, I'll just ask you all and remind you all to please, when you're debating this, stick to the topic, okay? Otherwise, we could end up here at midnight. So, Councillor Edwards.
If midnight's what it takes, I'll be here.
Stick to the topic.
My blood boils on it, and it should, as for everybody in this chamber. and my attendance shoulder to shoulder with those hurt most by it over the last couple of weeks on the steps of Parliament attests to that. Yet I commend the officers on their report, which details the impact directly on council. Over $16 million of our local economy is leaving to Spring Street, and this tax directly impacts those hurt most, being farmers. Not calculated on income, nor equity, but on the rateable value of property with no exemption, no full exemption being offered. It is centralised control and patronising by the state government. Zero consultation, zero listening. To hide their hideous tax through council collection rather than doing their own dirty work is a cowardly act. I suggest constituents direct their concerns at those state MPs who voted for it, not at our council officers who will be footing the complaints on the phone. The same day as this tax was passed at approximately 2 a.m. in the morning through the state upper house, a drought package was miraculously announced backing farmers with dollar for dollar support up to $5,000 in drought declared areas for infrastructure works when farmers need more than anything just to keep their stock alive. Mental health support to soften the blow, no doubt, from the impact this is having mentally on those who are already pushed to the brink. Farmers are expected to reach out for help from the same hand that hurts them. It is salt in the wounds of those who sit at the end of early mornings and long days at farming tables, literally ripping the food out of farming families' mouths to buy votes in the city, with social media flooded by government MP propaganda over the last few days of free transport for those in metro seats. Someone other than somebody benefiting is always paying. Nothing is free. It's time we found ways for every dollar of every level of government, this is a collective statement here, to be easily traceable. One core question needs to be asked is every dollar expended, every hour of time, how is that resource adding back directly to the people who paid for it? It's not about whether we individually, ideologically agree or not on different programs. It's whether government should or not be in those spaces to start with. Tax less, do less, get out of people's ways and do the core well and get out of the way. This tax is unfair, it is unjust, and we need to continue to advocate for it to be abolished.
Yeah, Councillor Edwards.
Well done.
Councillor Thompson.
I endorse all those words. Thank you very much. I just want to point out one thing, that the rates are going to go up 150% for farmers, and which is absolutely ridiculous. And I point out that, and I'm a member of the CFA, a lot of the CFA volunteers are farmers in the country, so we're taxing them to do something that they already do for free. So this is totally an impost on them, and I don't call it a levy, it's an actual tax. And the 5,000 grant that has to be matched, what they can do with that is just useless. They can get another water tank, but not going to make any difference when there's no water. They can't even fill up the tanks that they've already got. I think this is a great impost, but we've got to remember this is going on everyone's rates. All of us are going to cop this. And I would like to ask a question. Will the council make note on the rates notice that the emergency services tax is a state impost, not a council charge, please?
Can I see clarification on that, Mr Phil Moulter?
Thank you, Mr Mayor, Deputy Mayor. We'll definitely be making it a lot clearer that the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund levy is a charge that we are collecting on behalf of the state, and we'll make it absolutely crystal clear in our rate notice.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Anyone else like to speak to Councillor O'Brien?
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. Look, I'm, appalled at this, and I think that I think in sort of picking up on the comments of both Councillor Edwards and the comments being made, is that as local government, we're really close to our communities. As local government, we have a role to try to protect our communities from this kind of overreach, by government, and this kind of unfair overreach. The outcome of this will be that we'll see more of the small business farmers cascade, be swallowed up by the larger agribusinesses, and it's been happening, of course, for the past 20 or 30 years. As costs rise, only the very large will survive this, and it's going to change. It changes schools, it changes communities. one less family, one less teacher in the school. There are all these knock-on effects from this kind of thoughtless, it really is a thoughtless impost. And being placed on the problem for farmers is that the return on investment on the size of the asset and the value of the asset is small, and yet this is calculated against the value of the asset. So they're in a unique position. Yes, they're in a unique position as small business owners. We're going to see more of them driven out. We're going to see more and more big agribusiness swallowing up their farms. It's the knock-on effects, through our communities from this will be immense. We really need to fight hard against this one.
Thank you, Councillor O'Brien. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, fellow councillors and ratepayers watching this meeting. Two parts to this which I would like to provide for councillors. We're talking against the tax, absolutely. But the motion, what the in front of us is to adopt a report on the notice of motion of what we've asked the to produce, which they have produced. But so I think we have to adopt this, which means, no, we don't agree with the tax at all. And don't forget, on the tax itself, the mental health aspect of the farmers. One farmer commits suicide every 10 days on the statistics. But going back to this, I don't know, how do we abstain from the whole motion? That's my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Before I do go to anyone else, I'd like to just acknowledge what Councillor Bauer says and remember what we are actually voting on is a recommendation on the screen. Would anyone else like to speak to or against this motion? No? Before I go back to Councillor Edwards to sum up, I'd just like to also announce that on Friday, the CEO, Greg Box, and myself sat in a room with 78 other councils and pushed back incredibly strongly at the MAV State Council to go to the state and tell them to, as it was put earlier, do your own dirty work and don't ask the local government to do your work for you. So they have heard that already. They took no notice of it, but they will hear a lot more. Councillor Edwards, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I think it's very clear that the state government are not listening to country Victorians whatsoever. They have treated us with disdain. They have treated councils with disdain. They are not listening. They simply see us as the administration arm of their hideous new tax. And this is hurting. This is hurting people already. We just watched a movie the other week, Just a Farmer in Wonthaggi, that was supported by council. And here we are allowing this. We need to fight harder. We need to make a real noise on this one and stand up to the government on this one. This is something that could have blood on its hands. And the heartbreaking stories, the stories I've been hearing firsthand from people are absolutely heartbreaking. This is a callous act by a cold and cruel government, and we need to stand against it.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. We'll put it to a vote. The motion in front of us. All in favour of.
Can you read the motion again, please?
Councillor Phil Moulter, would you like to?
He's not a councillor.
So we have crystal clear what we're
Can I not just ask the again? Yep. So we're clear on what we're voting on?
Yep.
Mr Phil Moulter, sorry. Gotcha.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. So the recommendation before the Council is that Council notes the 53% increase in Emergency Services Volunteer Fund collections from Bass Coast ratepayers, totaling $5.52 million annually. Acknowledges the administrative and reputational impacts of Council collecting a state-imposed levy. Supports improved transparency and communication on levy implementation and local reinvestment. Seeks clarification on support measures for those facing financial hardship due to the levy increase. Seeks clarification on proposed implementation package, including funding for local councils and the sector as a whole. Rate notices make it clear that the Emergency Services Volunteer Fund levy is a charge that is being collected by Council on behalf of the state. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
So we're all clear on what we're voting on. We've all spoken. All in favour of the recommendation? Carried. 8.8, delegated authority to the CEO for acceptance and execution of loan quotation, refinancing interim loan of 12.5 million and a new loan of 5.9, to be introduced by Mr Phil Moulter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to provide the Chief Executive Officer with delegated authority to accept the loan proposal from Treasury Council Victoria to refinance an existing interim loan facility and consolidate this with a new loan of $5.9 million that is tied to capital works and the transfer of the Wonthaggi and San Remo cemeteries to the Southern Metropolitan Cemeteries Trust. This loan is proposed to be drawn in 2 tranches, one over 3 years and one over 10 years. This will enable Council to take advantage of the current reduction in short-term fixed rates following the recent developments in financial markets, while also providing it with a manageable repayment schedule through the 10-year principal and interest facility. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Phil Moulter. Can I have somebody move and second? Councillor Thompson, seconded by Councillor Edwards. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I've read this thoroughly and I have asked Mr Phil Moulter a couple of questions and I'm satisfied with those. This is totally normal and I'm happy to recommend this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Edwards.
I have nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Anyone else like to speak to or against? No. Put it to a vote. Councillor Thompson? Yep.
Yes, please.
All in favour? Carried. 8.9. Review of instrument of delegation, Council to staff and instrument of subdelegation, Environment Protection Act 2, 2017. Council to staff be introduced by Mr Phil Moulter, the main man.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. The purpose of this report is to update staff positions within the instrument of delegation from Council to staff and the instrument of subdelegation for the Environment Protection Act from Council to staff. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Phil Moulter. Can I have somebody move and second? Councillor Thompson, seconded. Councillor Morgan just got in there. Councillor Thompson.
Yes, I am more than happy to move this motion. I think it's very important that we take away a lot of the smaller operational decisions from the council, only if there's no objections from residents. Saves a lot of time and I totally endorse this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Councillor Morgan.
Nothing further to add.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Anyone else like to speak to or against? No. Councillor Thompson, put it to a vote.
Yes, please. Thank
All in favour? Carried. 8.10, appointment of Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, to be introduced by Mr Phil Moulter.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This report recommends the appointment of the Chair to the Audit and Risk Committee for a further period of 12 months. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr Phil Moulter. Moved. Councillor Bauer, seconded. Councillor Bauer. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. This is procedural. However, I've discussed with members of the Audit and Risk Committee who are very happy with the chairman, so I have no problem in moving this motion.
Thank you, Councillor Bauer. Councillor Bell.
Yeah, we met him last week. He seems capable. Checked his LinkedIn profile. All good.
Done your research. Thank you, Councillor Bell. Would anyone else like to speak to or against? No. Councillor Bell, put it to a vote. All in favour? Carried. And that is it. So it brings us now to stat reports. So can I now move as a block that we accept items 9.1, 9.2, 9.3, 9.4 to be considered as a block. Can I have a move and a vote? Seconder, Councillor Temby. Seconder, Councillor Bell. All in favour? Carried. Would anyone like to speak to the reports? No. Councillor Tenby?
One brief one, and I've mentioned it before, the ongoing removal of trees in a lot of these plans is something that is ongoing concern to me, and it's really important that we take steps to ensure that we don't have a net loss of canopy cover.
Thank you, Councillor Tenby. Anyone else like to speak to any of the reports? No. I move now that recommendation that we accept items 9.1, 9.2, 9.3 and 9.4. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Thompson, seconded Councillor Bauer. All in favour? Carried. Okay, urgent business. Unless someone's going to throw me a curly, we have none. No. Okay, so that brings us to the end of our meeting. So thank you everybody for putting up with me again. The next council meeting will be held on the 18th of June. You'll be happy to know that our mayor will be back then. And it'll be held here at the Bass Coast Civic Centre, 1 o'clock commencement. I thank you all for being in attendance. I thank you all for watching. Please hang around. We've got some tea and coffee and maybe some nibblies, I'm not sure, just out in the foyer. So let's hang around, have a chat and tell me how good a job I did of hosting with that. Closed. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Let's just pause.
Great job, Rick.